Chrystia Freeland spoke to reporters recently at the Liberal caucus retreat about Mark Carney joining the team to help with the financial planning going into the fall. Never minding the fact that this is literally Chrystia Freeland's job.
Let's take a look.
Thank you for the question. I'm really glad to welcome Mark here to our cabinet retreat. He is a real addition to our team. Mark is a friend of a personal friend of very long standing. He's someone who I talk to often and whom I've talked to often about economic policy since becoming finance minister. I had a long conversation with him over the weekend. It's really great for our team to have Mark providing advice to the Liberal Party so that we can support Canada and Canadians.
So the question was originally in French, and her first answer was in French, but basically it's, what does Mark Carney bring to the team, and, what's he there for? I still find this confusing, because if she's been talking to Mark for years about economic policy, and that has translated into the economic policy that has been implemented for the Liberal Party, for Canada, what are we expecting to change with now the guy who she was talking about economic policy to now being part of the quote-unquote team?
Yeah, that was going to be my question. If she's been, it sounds like, bouncing policy off of him and getting his ideas, why is everybody touting this guy as the savior of the Liberal Party? It sounds like he's already taken part in the downfall.
Well, and here's the other huge concern, and Michael Barrett raised this yesterday. So questions have been brought to us and no doubt to the media about who is paying Mark Carney for his services. Well, it isn't the Canadian government.
So it's not the taxpayer.
It's not the taxpayer in effect. Now, many people may be saying, well, good, the Liberals are doing something right. Well, there's a big problem with that. And the problem is this. If the Canadian taxpayer isn't paying for this, then Mark Carney has no obligation to disclose any conflicts of interest, as he is helping shape the Liberal economic policy of the future. He is still the chairman of Brookfield Investments, a multinational investment firm, and he still has vested interests in many other companies. So what this would allow him to effectively do is to direct financial policy for the Liberal Party, enriching himself and being subject to no ethics laws.
He's creating economic policy for the country and not being subject to ethics laws.
Right.
Yeah.
So
because he's hired by the Liberal Party. His employer is the Liberal Party, not the government of Canada.
Which doesn't make any lick of
sense.
sense whatsoever, because if he's not being hired by the government, why should he be allowed to A, have access to, and B, direct the financial strategy for the government of Canada? So if you just look at this for what it is, this is effectively Freeland being fired without being fired. And I think now we know why the the media leaks occurred earlier in the summer about this. Why? Because that was the Liberal litmus test of how Canada and how the media would react to Chrystia Freeland being bounced out as finance minister. It didn't go very well. So they said, all right, given that fact, Freeland, you're just going to stay on. You're going to shut up. You're going to keep getting the paycheck as the finance minister and as the deputy prime minister, and you're going to be a good little soldier. But we're going to bring in Mark Carney, and he's effectively going to be the finance minister. All you have to do is speak to what his decisions are.
Yeah, it sounds like Freeland has been denigrated to a figurehead.
Yeah, she's a puppet finance minister now at this point. So it's unreal, this maneuver that they're trying to do. Now, it's still a bit bizarre that Carney is trying to kind of just, sidestep in here, but he's going to get enrolled up in the Liberal brand, in the Trudeau brand, when they lose the next election. So I don't agree with this approach, because I would be waiting until after the next election to come in if he does in fact want to lead the Liberal Party. So it's interesting, but I don't think it's right that he doesn't have to disclose anything, and he's directing the financial future of the government of Canada until the next election. That raises some huge red flags.
That's really shady, and I hope Barrett, who's the shadow minister for ethics, goes after them and goes after them hard.
Well, in terms of Mark's policies, views, I think those are questions for Mark. I think you guys know my view on hypotheticals. As I learned during the NAFTA negotiations, it's never a good idea for a politician to answer hypotheticals.
So the reporter was effectively asking, about the carbon tax and what Mark Carney's views are, and then Chrystia Freeland has the gall to say, well, if you want to know about Mark Carney's view on those policies, you have to ask Mark. No, they're asking you. And the reason why they're asking you is because of the point we just made. You're the finance minister. So if your team is bringing on somebody that's going to be advising on finance, you better know.
It's your responsibility.
Yeah, you better know what his views are, and you better be able to speak to them. Because if he's going to be entrusted to lead a commission or a team or whatever the heck you want to call it, which is essentially just code word for Mark's the new finance minister, then you better be able to speak to it. So, yeah, no, that answer doesn't cut it.
What we heard over the summer, all of us spent a great deal of time traveling the country, talking to people in our own communities. We heard that people have frustrations, and we listened. And what we heard is that Canadians need housing. They need us to build more homes faster. That is what we're doing. Canadians need life to be more affordable. We are working so hard on that with programs like early learning and childcare, with programs like dental care, and the fact that inflation and interest rates are coming down is extremely helpful in that regard too. And then finally, what Canadians need that we are focused on delivering is economic growth that works for everyone.
So we went around the barbecue circuit, and we talked to Canadians, and we listened. Because we didn't listen in 2023, we didn't listen in 2022, and we didn't listen in 2021. But now we're listening.
Yeah, because they have no more agreement with the NDP.
And Canadians told us they need homes. I'm not sure if everybody knows, but there's a housing shortage out there. So this was good information. We need to start building homes. And Canadians want things to be more affordable. Just so everybody knows, because I don't think anyone's reporting on this, there's an affordability crisis going on in Canada. People are having trouble buying groceries. Yes, as the Liberal government, we're on top of this.
It's insulting the way she acts like this is new news.
Well, yeah, and they're like, and we're working on that. Yeah, so you solve an affordability crisis by spending more money that you don't have, increasing the deficit, which increases the amount of debt servicing costs, which increases the amount of taxes that you need in order to cover that expense. Meaning, taxes go up for Canadians. Like you can't make this stuff up, folks.
Well, and it's not just taxes that are going up for Canadians, it's inflation as well. And I know we don't see it right this second, but the more money the government borrows, the higher inflation will go.
Look.
So, as with many CPAC press conferences, sometimes they don't catch the questions of all the reporters. But from what I was able to kind of extract from that question is the reporter saying, what do you say to voters that basically say it's too late and that Trudeau has to step down. What does that say about the state that your party is in? That's basically what he said.
I think it's worse than that. I think that the party is in such a state that Trudeau can't step down because it's too late for that even.
Right. Like, how bad are things that the guy who caused all this mess is now unable to step down because it's basically rock bottom?
Well, isn't the captain supposed to go down with the ship?
Well, now, even if they change leaders, it's probably going to go down even more because there's no time. There is no time for a new leader to rebrand the party. There's no time for a leader to select a new cabinet. There is no time for a new leader to effectively change the entire policy platform of the government so they can say, it's mine. Everything that is here is Trudeau, and it's here to stay until the next election. So it's too late. So the state of the party is that you guys have completely screwed the pooch. Everybody knows it. They can deny it all they want, but they know it. And you can tell in Chrystia Freeland's body language when it takes her 10 seconds to actually begin to answer a question like this.
It is important to be candid with Canadians, and it's been a summer when Canadians have been candid with us. And I think all of us have heard Canadians have a lot of frustrations.
It's been a summer where Canadians have been candid with us.
That's probably one way
I'll
to put it.
bet they have been.
Tell us how candid they've been with you, Chrystia Freeland. How many swear words have you heard? Because all we've heard from Karina Gold and even yourself earlier is that things are great.
Canadians have never had it so good.
Yeah, things are great. AAA credit rating. Debt to GDP ratio.
Inflation's coming down.
Interest rates are coming down. Everything's great, right? Yeah. Lying your asses off when you say, well, the Canadians we talk to, this is what they want. Really? So Canadians want higher taxes. Canadians want not to be able to afford a home. Canadians want not to be able to afford food. Canadians want to live in tents. Right.
It is so important for us to hear the concerns of Canadians, to listen to those concerns, to act on them, and to deliver. And that is what we are all absolutely focused on doing, starting with the Prime Minister. I think I've already answered that question, but I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to answer again. So let me just say about Mark, truly, Mark is a personal friend of mine of very long standing. I have been talking to Mark about the economy since long before I became a politician. And as soon as I became a minister, I continued to talk to Mark and get his advice and talk about ideas with him. He is a highly respected Canadian economic leader. It is a really good thing for our party and for Canada and Canadians that we are now able to draw even more on Mark's advice. He and I had a really good conversation over the weekend, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with him.
Sounds like a puppet finance minister to me.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like if she's been getting all this advice from Mark Carney, it's not only Freeland's fault. It sounds like he had a hand in the country's economic destruction as well.
Yep. And sounds like they had a long conversation about getting their story straight. And probably Mark talking about, well, do you still want to place in a party after Trudeau's gone? Because, let's talk about that. And let's talk about what that means in terms of what you're going to say and what I'm going to say. So,
based on Freeland's background, I think that the most appropriate cabinet position for her would be Heritage Minister, because she's a journalist, right?
And her education is in history.
Right. So absolutely not Finance Minister. I'm not saying I'd want her as Heritage Minister either. I'm just saying I think if she were to be in cabinet, that'd probably be the most appropriate position for her. But I have no idea how this woman ended up as our Finance Minister.
Well, but the challenge about being Heritage Minister is she's not even educated in Canadian heritage. So even that kind of doesn't make sense.
It's Russian history, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a reach. It's a reach. But this is the thing. We now see how the the Liberals have brought Mark Carney in to be finance minister without actually naming him finance minister, and they also don't have to disclose his salary either because he's being paid by the party.
Right. Now, it would make more sense to me if he was handling the party's finances, because the party does need a treasurer. All political parties need one. I believe it's one of the requirements outlined by Elections Canada. In order to be a party, you need to show them your financials and you need to have a treasurer. But why Carney is being brought on as like a financial advisor who's being paid by the party and not paid by the government, that to me is sketchy.
Well, it allows him to be able to have the authority that he wants without the accountability, and no doubt he's getting paid probably as much as Chrystia Freeland by the Liberal Party, so he's getting the extra money as well, and he doesn't have to disclose anything, and the decisions that he makes, if they're in his financial interest, he's not subject to any scrutiny or ethics laws.
Hey, do you suppose that this is why the Liberal Party was charging $50 for a Frisbee this summer as part of their campaign?
Could be. The Mark
To
Carney
shore,
funds?
Yeah, shore up funds for Mark Carney's salary.